Hey everyone, welcome back. Now, realizing that it's been quite some time now, haven't really done any videos. Though, of course, that being said, still been working on a few things here and there. Like, of course, still just about got the Mustang done. That's been started a couple months prior, which, realizing it's been dragging on for way too long than it perhaps should be. But, of course, very much prioritizing on that for the time being. So that should be able to have its own video coming up in a few days. But the main thing I want to focus on today was taking a look at a couple second generation Camaro kits that I have. And mainly for this is that pretty much got a small collection built up of various 70 and a half, I suppose, Camaros from 70 and a half all the way to 1981. So, figured, got these kits nearby, so figured might as well take a look at them. Which, get into here. Of course, we start off with what the body of this one, which is the 70 and a half, which was the introduction to the second generation Camaro that was released late of 1970. Now, this version here is the one with the full bumper, which came out quite some time ago now. This one here. Now, there is, of course, the Baldwin Motion split bumper, as well as some other variations of the kit here and there. Start off with that. And then, of course, you have, going from this, you have the slanted more body, pointier nose. And then later on in the years, you have 72, 73, which end up having the full bumpers, whereas the 70, 71 kits have, or cars I should supposedly say, have the split bumper option on the higher end performance models like the SS and Z28 models. So put that to the side for there. And then, of course, later on, like 1980, the front end styling did end up changing quite a lot, which brings to this body style here, which is which this kit here is I believe the 1977 version, but could really pass as a 75, 76, or 77, as it's got the lengthened nose cone with the 5-mile-an-hour impact absorbing bars on the front, and it'd be on the back, along with the wraparound taillights to conform to regulations. Then, of course, during this time, the Z28 model was discontinued from 74, 75, and I believe 76. Then, of course, 77 was the reintroduction of the performance package. Now, of course, between these cars, you did have quite a few engine options. Like, you have, like, starting off, you had, like, a little 6-cylinder on the Sport Coupe models. And then, of course, you have, like, a 307 introductory V8. And then all the way up to, I believe, the 396 in these cars. Though, of course, the 350 would have been a fairly standard go-to. These mid-years, don't really know too much about these, which I probably should have before starting this video. Though, of course, quite a few engine options. Though, of course, getting to this period didn't really have much performance. And the box art for this is this kit right here, which bought quite a while ago as kind of a parts lot sort of deal. So it's pretty much going to be build up kit anyways, so not too worried about that, as kits like these like especially these limited runs or these annual ones end up getting released a couple times and then discontinued forever. And then, of course, with that, you go into in the later years. Like there was another redesign in 1978, which introduced the front nose cone to be a polyurethane rubber bumper. Same on the back as well, or pretty much just bumper cover or nose cone. Now, this kit here is the Revell monogram version. Specifically, the one here is the 2011 release, which I've had for quite some time now. So, pretty much just had to decide. Of course, 3-in-1 gives you a couple variations to build the car up as. Yeah, so pretty much with this, nice style, pretty much nice style, in which do like the early 70s ones, but the late 80s one or the late 70s ones do have quite the charm, as like having the front nose cone does make the front end more stylized as opposed to the 74, 75, 76, 77 models. Now, of course, you get to 78 being the new design here. There are a couple small variations. The interior was fairly similar throughout the years. The difference mainly being is that steering wheels change, of course, depending on the option and trim. Though 78s had the same dash structure as a 77 car. Then you go into 79, which this kit would be, which went to an updated styling. So so a couple changes here and there. Now, of course, they did give you a choice of engine options like V6, like a V6 or V8, as engine options were quite limited, but there were still something out there, even though the engines at that point were heavily emissions restricted. So pretty much ranging from a 305 to the 350. So depending on what engines you got varied on the horsepower. Though of course 78 was from my understanding, the more successful year out of the entire Camaro lineup, as that would end up setting a record for quite a while. So got that, and then you go to the next year, which I've got two versions here. The first one I have here is the Fujimi 80 Camaro Underground, the Underground Camaro, which is a 124 scale kit, pretty much same with the monogram kit. Though proportion-wise, this Fujimi kit feels fine, though it does have quite a larger, feels as though it has quite the width to it. And then comparing it to the 79 car, is fairly similar, though the body itself is a lot shorter on the Fujimi kit. Now, the kit itself for the Fujimi, there is a version of it which probably back like in the 80s, 90s, where you had the electric motors, like it was a Porsche race car that I built up sometime last year, I think it was. You have the power functions, like a little gear motor inside, and then battery pack. You power everything up, and the car can run it on its own. So that's quite nice. So, but of course, this one here being the later release, these ones are just the basic curbside kit with nothing hugely special to it, but it is quite a neat little one to work with. Then of course this one here's the MPC 81 Camaro. Now this one here is quite I guess a more uncommon kit that's around, as don't really see MPC release much for the GM F-body cars, mainly for the Camaros. Now, the surprising part is that for this, it's a lot. I'll probably end up having to show it in a different video, but a lot of the parts on here are actually a lot different than you'd find in the Firebird kits, as you'll have other manufacturers that will just use parts for the Camaro and Firebird, and it'll be just the same exact kit, just different exterior. Which originally I was waiting to get the Revell 81 Camaro Z28, which it's been out for about a year now, which from what I've understand is probably one. It's not exactly the best kit that I've heard from others. But of course, that being said, I've looked at getting it because myself, I do have an 81 Camaro that's a very similar charcoal gray, but the only difference being a hard top. So figured have it for the box art and decals would be quite nice to have. Which, similarly enough, this one was a build from way long time ago. Have this taken apart briefly just to show off the body. This is another 8081 Camaro. This one, the AMT Chevera Snap Tight kit, as it's got the Porsche whale tail spoiler. So overall, quite nice. Now, of course, like, not really much changed from the 79 to the 80 model. The slight difference being exterior wise is that you have different hood intake scoops on the fenders, and then you do think like you also had the rear fender flares, which contoured the body more, whereas on the 78, 79 cars was more just smoothed out. And then, of course, you did have the slight difference of, for the hood, you have the air induction hood scoop, whereas before you had the ram air intake that was on the 78, 79 car. Though, going back a little bit on mentioning how certain companies or kit companies would reuse the same chassis for Camaro and Firebirds to put on different bodies, or use the same chassis and just put different bodies. Got these, what I consider like the misshaped F bodies, where these ones here are the older testers kits from, I think, the late 90s, early 2000s. They're nothing crazy special, as they're just a kind of like they're basically a snap tight kit. Of course, kind of curbside, but not really, as you do have some engine details, even though they are quite vague. Now, of course, the bodies on both these cars are exactly the same, even though real life they'd be considerably different, mainly due to the fact that the fenders on the Firebirds are considerably different than what you'd find on the Camaro. As on the Camaro, they go to the front, then curve around, whereas, like, say, on the Firebirds, they just end up going to a flat end. Of course, another difference being, like, the Firebirds have the kind of like an 80s, more like the 80s Camaro air intake scoops, whereas, of course, you have the 70s styled air vents on the Camaros themselves. Now, of course, on Firebirds, you do have the tail lights, or the side marker lights, integrated into the rear quarter panels, as you have the flat tail light bar on the back, which end up needing those, whereas on the Camaro, the Camaros by this time had the wraparound tailgate, so the marker lights on the back weren't exactly needed, and because of that, the body line goes all the way down, like you'd see, for instance, on on the MPC model here. So go to there, then taper down to the edges. Now, of course, the Firebirds, they just they swoop down, then come to an abrupt stop on the vertical axis, and then bumper sitting down with the bumper with cutout for the license plate, which of course similar to the Camaro. Difference being the Camaros had little fuel cap cover. Flip that open, get to the fuel tank. On the Firebirds, some had it where you have the license plate bracket, or you had a little panel behind the tail light piece. Now, see if I have some of the pieces here quickly. Okay, yes I do. Now, some of the things that I found that quite a few manufacturers tend to not get right is kind of like the fact that you end up using the same dash. Like, this could be for either the Firebird or the Camaro. Doesn't really matter, but the interior itself is supposed to be for a Firebird. Or if not a Firebird, very similar to the early 70s Camaros, just having the curved dash. The trunk, probably like the glove box, would probably be the fine indicator on if it's for Camaro or Firebird. Not really much detail on the testers pieces, as slight issue there. Then this is the interior for the car that you have here. Fairly decent interior, though could be like custom seats, of course, though some of them don't really match up to others. And then here's the other interior, which is basically the same thing. Basically like standard interior for manual car, which is actually quite nicer than having gear selector and everything's meant for an automatic car. This is the dash pulled from this car here, which does feature the proper instrumentation for a Camaro of the later 80s, having the squared off dash surround, smaller glove box, which is quite similar to the early 70s Camaros, though of course having the styling changeover given the years. And this, of course, here got the interior for the MPC Camaro. This one here also features the same pieces as the Chevera Camaro. Pretty similar, which is to be expected. Now, of course, having the proper Z28 Sport steering wheel. Now, this one, of course, being just an automatic model. Nothing too fancy on it. This one, no, not this one. This one here, I just have the custom steering wheel, as ended up using the steering wheel from the kit on a different build. Put that to the side for now. Yeah, this is the dash off of the 78 Camaro, which, of course, nothing really changed. Could be a few small things in real life here and there, but in scale form, not really much to notice. Then you got the chassis themselves. Nothing too special. Standard small block going to single exhaust, splitting off to a double. Now, of course, this one here being the snap kit, not really too much to mention. Of course, got the chassis here for the Firebird and Camaros. Like seen on here, it's got, for the testers kits, got the lettering, or for the copyright for the Firebirds, which having both chassis here, basically the same thing, even though in real life they would have been considerably different. Now, of course, for these two here, not sure what I'm going to do with them entirely, as they've mainly just been sitting as is. Though I have contemplated of painting these up to just one solid color, mainly for the fact that kind of like it, pretty much have these as a pair of identity crisis vehicles. How you have the front end that doesn't look all that good, as it looks very squished in and very shrunk, as you have other ones that are much wider and more proportionate. Even though the crazy like this 125th and this 124, but you go to 124, 124, you end up having a considerable difference between overall dimensions. And then even with the Fujimi kit, very similar, but of course this one here having way better proportions. So not really exactly something that might be worth the time taking care of. So a little bit of that, and a little bit finish things off. I have this much larger one. This is a 1/20th scale 1980 Turbo Camaro by Monogram. This kit here, I believe, has only been released one singular, maybe like once or twice. Which, of course, being this large kit here, which did feature in a video long time ago. So, pretty much just been spending time preserving this for the time being. Though a lot, pretty much all molded up in color. So, not quite sure on what to do with it, but something might get done eventually. So, yeah, so pretty much a little bit of a quick look at some 70s 80s Camaros I have. Now, of course, 81 ended up having quite a drastic drop in numbers from the 79 car. As 19, I forget what the numbers are right now for the 79 car, but they were significantly more than the 81 model, as 1981 seeing only 126,000 units built between Canada and the US, which, all that being said, isn't really a huge amount made, primarily because like they're not nothing really changed between from the 80 to 81, and then of course 82 received the whole new restyle, which then of course lasted from 1982 to 1992, and then of course 1993 a whole new body style again. So yeah, it's a little bit of a look and history throughout some of the Camaro kits I have in stock. Now, of course, I do have, like pretty much anyone, got a bunch of the Gen 3 cars and Gen 1 cars, which might end up building couple of those here and there, but we'll see how that ends up going. So, pretty much be a case of pretty much just afterwards clean everything up. So yeah, and then of course finish up a few projects here and there, and that pretty much should be it. And of course, this year coming to an end, don't really have much planned for Christmas builds. Might use one of these, but given that's already like the second week into December, I don't feel as I might have time, but don't really think I'll have much time to do anything more festive wise. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it for this video. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.